When I say colonization, what is it that comes to your mind? Considering our last story, you'd say the UK and you'd be spot on. The British were among the biggest colonizers that our world has seen. But right now, I'm talking about the concept, colonization. What does it really mean? One can argue that it is the draining of resources by a foreign power, a faraway nation taking away your wealth, making themselves richer, leaving your land barren and your people impoverished. Now, this kind of colonization has not really gone away. It is still rampant, especially in the continent of Africa. Only the colonizers have changed. Now it's China. And it's not sending its armies to Africa. China is using another tactic. It's called resource-backed loans. Loans in return for African resources. And whichever way you look at it, Africa stands to lose. Let me explain how. China has been pouring money into Africa for decades in the name of bringing development. But this is not charity, it's debt. China, in fact, has given money to at least 11 African nations. And we're talking about billions of dollars here in the form of investments and loans. What does China get in return? African resources. Suppose a country needs an emergency loan. They go to a lender, someone who's willing to give them money and to give it fast. Also someone who doesn't complain or lecture about corruption or worry about the sustainability of the debt. This lender just wants to make money by exploiting the desperate nation. It's the classic definition of a loan shark, aka China. In Africa and elsewhere too, China is the biggest loan shark. It offers loans to African countries and the loans come with brutal riders. Money is disbursed in exchange for natural resources. Whatever natural wealth the country possesses, oil, gas, copper, cobalt, you name it, everything is up for grabs. And this is not a fair exchange, far from it.
First and foremost, because you can't price the asset properly. If you have minerals, oil, metals, and gas under the ground, it's not actually being marketed. So how you actually come up with a price of that for a long-term contract, it's a challenge.
Undervaluing natural assets is standard. China sizes up the commodity, declares a low estimate of it, and then demands that as compensation. Think of it as a pawn shop, which is ripping you off. But the borrowing nation has no choice, really. The lender has agreed to give them money, and that too urgently. They also promise to invest in your country, build infrastructure to extract your resources, and they promise to give a tiny share of this wealth to you. How does a desperate government argue?
Is that the negotiation is very asymmetric. Most countries that want to do natural resource-backed loans are probably dealing with bigger countries, bigger commercial banks that want to give them a loan and say, well, look, it's urgent, we need it, but this is what you have to sign. But it is those that actually want to give the loan that have the upper power, not the person who wants or the country that wants to receive the loan.
If outright bullying does not work, there's always corruption. Look at these reports. China is mentioned everywhere. It is accused of buying off officials in multiple countries, which is cheaper than paying the correct price for natural resources. Just offer a bribe. And on the rare occasion that China is called out, you'll hear about settlements, confidential new deals. But these additional Chinese payments never seem to reach the common people. And China seems to have perfected the art of exploiting Africa, but it's not the only one doing it. Western companies are in on this. Take the Swiss traders, Glencore and Trafigura. They've also been called out over the same resource-backed loans. They gave loans to countries like Chad, the Republic of Congo, and Angola. Chad in particular was crushed by Glencore's loan. The loan was in return for oil. Chad made money by selling oil, but most of this money went straight to the Swiss company, while Chad kept becoming poorer until it became the first nation to ask for a debt overhaul from the G20. So the West is definitely complicit. They just mask their neo-colonization better. So the question is, which is worse, China or the Western firms? We'd say China, because in the case of Western companies, at least there are courts, international courts, some semblance of legal recourse for the victims. But if it's a Chinese loan, we wish you good luck. Because China doesn't seem to believe in international courts, it doesn't even listen to them. So African nations must be on their guard. They've been colonized before, most of them. They won their independence. And now it seems they'll have to fight for it again.